Welcome back. In this video, I will be going over the custom crafting system that we made for Isolated Isle. This system ended up being a little bit more complicated than we expected, and it took a lot more time than we wanted it to for the map jam. But it took us so long to make that we ended up basically having to use it because the entire map sort of revolved around this custom crafting system. So we had to make it work by any means possible. So this is the means that were required to make this work. So let's go ahead and go into it. So the basics of it is you click an item, and then over here you have the amount of time it'll take to craft, and then the actual item that you're crafting. So you click the craft item, and then you get a thing. It quits you out of the crafting table, and you can't interact with it. That's me right-clicking very vigorously, and then you get your output items. So that's the basics of how you do this. Now I'm going to give myself some sticks, but they're actually minecarts. I'm not going to go over exactly why that is. I'll make another video later on, probably later this week, if not tomorrow, going over exactly why we use non-stackable items to make the items not stackable. That's kind of a stupid sentence, but I'll get into exactly why that's not the stupidest sentence I've ever said in a future video. Basically how this works is I have a bunch of scoreboards that detect whenever you craft a music disc or a banner pattern. We have banner patterns and music discs for this. The reason for that is because banner patterns and music discs are the only items that have lore by default. So we can basically relang everything about records and banner patterns into what we need them to say. No other items except for effect arrows and potions without data have that, but those appear on a different crafting tab, so we didn't end up using them. So we're limited to 17 recipes for this map, and that's why they're sort of straight and to the point. I mean, there's other sort of weird reasons as well, but this is the main reason we have exactly 17 recipes, is because that's the maximum amount we could theoretically have with this. With this limitation that we gave ourselves, basically. We could have theoretically had more if we didn't have to use lore items. An earlier version of this didn't use them. We had a different GUI interface that looked neater and overall cooler, but it didn't work out as well as we wanted it to, for reasons I will show here in a minute. But basically, whenever I detect that a player crafted a music disc or a banner pattern using that score, I then clear that out of their inventory, and then based on the score, I set a bunch of values in a scoreboard. This scoreboard over here, let's actually CRT2. Let me craft a wooden plank, and as you can see, we have current, then seconds, bar, and then some other values up here that are just used for making that area effect cloud display above it. That's all that is for, and then the current value is used to determine what item is outputted by the recipe. Now, this uses a lot of weird resource pack tech and layering. You've probably seen the creative inventory of this map by now. We have this weird thing over here, and then this weird thing down here, and you'll probably recognize those as being part of this. So let's actually talk about exactly what is going on here. So we have about 5 layers of textures going on in the recipe book right now. Let me give myself some items just so I can have stuff. This right here is the base layer of the crafting book, or the recipe book. And then next is the times. An actual recipe item, this is what a record looks like in 3D. We have the item that is outputting and then the amount of time it takes. So if you look here, we have the wooden plank here and then the sticks, we have the wooden plank here and then the amount of time it takes. And as you can see, that lines up to that right there. Then next, we have, after the time, we have this right here, which is this. This is actually a compass. I'll get into that here in a second. Then after that, we have this, which is a lava bucket. Once again, get to that here in a second. And then lastly, we have the actual items that output. I didn't really feel like filling those out with the recipes, so that's That's what that last layer is. So the reason we're using a compass and a lava bucket, and then also for reference here, an apple is invisible. If I disable the resource pack and we take a look at the recipe book, the tabs we have are, one second, the tabs we have are the compass, then a lava bucket, and an apple. So basically we move around the display of those objects to move them so they overlay properly, so we have this sort of 3 layers, or this 5-layer thing going on here. And that's just so we have this really neat looking display for the recipe book. Let's put the thing back on and closing thoughts. As I said, this took a while longer than we wanted it to, and it didn't turn out exactly as we wanted it to, because what we originally wanted to have was like, you put your items in here, and then you have your output item right here, and then you have like a confirm crafting button here. But the issue with that, what we wanted to do was actually display the items in fixed positions here on the lava bucket layer. So basically just have the items inside of this window. But we ended up not being able to do that because, pay attention to this order here. Now if I type reload, it's completely different. And it's an arbitrary sort that is just completely random every single reload. So we couldn't do that. So we just couldn't have that. And if we had that system, we could have potentially had a lot more recipes than we do. We wouldn't have been limited to items that had lore, because we could have just had like the name of the item or something. Or at least that was sort of the idea of it. But that ended up not working at all, so we were limited to the 17 recipes that we have. But yeah, that's the crafting system. I'll probably be making a video tomorrow or later on this week, talking about sort of the last few things, why we used the items we did for the non-stackable stuff, and just a bunch of miscellaneous tech that was in the map that isn't enough to fill a whole video. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will catch y'all next time.